The truth I'm about to share isn't something you'll ever see in the headlines. It's not the kind of thing whispered about at Hollywood parties. No, this is something buried, silenced, locked away where no one is supposed to find it. But I did. It all started with a file, one of 47 left behind by Ellen Vargas. She knew too much and now she's gone. When I opened it, I felt a chill, like the file itself didn't want to be touched. Like something inside it was alive, waiting for someone to let it out. Inside, I found symbols, cryptic ones, and photos that didn't make sense at first. And then there was the schedule. Every page kept leading back to two names, Jay-Z and Beyoncé. Now Beyoncé, that's a whole other story. She has her own file, full of revelations I'll get to eventually. But this story can't wait. This isn't about fame or power. No, it's about worship. Unholy ancient worship. At the center of it all is something darker than you can imagine. An idol. Not the kind you cheer for, but the kind you fear. And now, you're going to learn the horrifying truth behind Jay-Z's idol. It all started with a phone call I never should have made. Looking back, maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was stupidity that pushed me to dial her number. The truth was I needed answers, and M.I.A was the only one who could give them. I sat in my dimly lit office, the single desk lamp casting long shadows across the scattered pages of Ellen Vargas's file. That file. It wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before. Cryptic symbols, grainy photos of celebrities at strange parties, and one name, circled again and again, M.I.A. I knew she'd spoken to Vargas before she vanished, and if anyone could connect the dots, it was her. I took a deep breath and punched in the number. I'd found through a few back channels. The line rang twice before clicking to life. Hello? The voice was cautious, guarded. Marl Pragasam? I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. I'm calling about Ellen Vargas. The silence on the other end was deafening. For a moment I thought she'd hung up. Then finally she spoke, her voice low and tight. I told her to stop. I told her not to dig too deep, but she didn't listen. Now she's gone. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I leaned forward, gripping the phone tighter. I know what happened to her, or at least some of it. I've seen the files. I'm trying to piece it all together, but I need your help. She let out a bitter laugh, hollow and broken. Help you? No one can help you. If you keep looking, they'll come for you. Just like they came for her. Just like they came for me. Her fear was palpable, but I couldn't stop. Not now. What do you mean? I asked. Who's they? You know who, she whispered. You've seen the files, haven't you? The symbols. The names. You think Jay-Z and Beyoncé are just people? Just celebrities? You don't know what you're dealing with. I didn't know what to say. She kept going, her voice trembling. They're not just idols, she said. There's something else. Something darker. Vessels maybe, hosts. And the thing they serve, it doesn't stop. It doesn't forgive. And it doesn't forget. My pulse quickened as I scribbled notes on a scrap of paper. Tell me about the rituals, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Tell me what Vargas found. She hesitated. You don't want to know. I do, I said firmly. I need to know. There was a long silence before she answered. It starts with the parties, she said. Everyone in the industry knows about Diddy's parties. The public thinks they're just exclusive, wild, but they're not. Not really. The real party happens behind closed doors. Behind closed doors, I repeated, leaning closer to the phone. That's where the rituals happen, she said. They use blood, symbols, sometimes even sacrifices. Not always human, but close enough. They call it sealing the deal. And once you're in, you're in. There's no getting out. Her words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. And Jay-Z? Beyoncé, I asked. How are they involved? She let out another bitter laugh. How do you think? They don't just feed off the worship, they need it. It's what keeps them in power. And the more people worship them, the stronger it gets. It? I asked, already dreading the answer. The thing they serve, she said. I won't say its name. I won't give it more power. For a moment I couldn't speak. The room felt darker, colder. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Her voice broke. I could hear her struggling to hold back tears. Because I'm tired of being afraid, she said. But I can't help you more than this. They already came for my son. They ruined my life. And I can't. She stopped herself. I can't let them take anything else. Please, I said, my voice cracking. I'm not trying to expose you. I'm trying to stop this. You can't stop it, she said quietly. It's too big, too old. Just burn the files. Forget about Vargas. Walk away while you still can. And then she was gone. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. Vessels. Worship. Rituals. It sounded insane. But as I looked at the files scattered across my desk, I couldn't shake the feeling that it all fit. The photos from Diddy's parties, the strange symbols hidden in Jay-Z's album art, Beyoncé's cryptic lyrics. They weren't coincidences, they were pieces of a puzzle. My eyes drifted to the schedule. One date was circled in red, the night of Diddy's next party. If M.I.A was right, then this wasn't just another exclusive event. It was something much worse. I should have stopped there, burned the files, pretended I'd never seen any of it. But I couldn't, not after what I'd just heard. If there was even a chance she was telling the truth, I had to find out. I had to go to the party. A Diddy party. The more I uncovered, the deeper the darkness stretched. The files, the music, the call with M.I.A, together. They painted a picture, but it still felt incomplete. Like I was standing on the edge of something far too vast to understand. That's when I realized I needed help. Not from another investigator. Not from someone in the industry. No, this was beyond that. And Beyoncé's performances. The fire, the symbols, the choreography. They're not just art. They're rituals. He finally turned to face me. Every movement is deliberate. Every visual element serves a purpose. It's invocation disguised as entertainment. The crowd thinks they're watching a show, but they're participating in something much older, much darker. My throat felt dry. You're saying millions of people are part of this, I said. And they don't even know it. Father Anthony nodded slowly. That's the genius of it, he said. True worship doesn't always look like prayer. Sometimes it looks like applause. Sometimes it sounds like screaming fans. Sometimes it's a stadium full of people chanting lyrics they don't understand. A chill ran through me. And the party? I asked. Diddy's party? His jaw tightened. That's where the veil comes off, he said. Where the faithful gather without the masks. Where the contracts are renewed. Where offerings are made. Offerings? I echoed. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he made the sign of the cross. You need to understand something, he said quietly. Once you've seen the inner circle, once you witness what happens behind those doors, you don't walk away unchanged. Some people come back powerful, some come back empty, and some don't come back at all. The church felt colder now, heavier. I looked down at the file in my hands, suddenly aware that it felt less like evidence, and more like a warning. You still want the truth? Father Anthony asked. I met his eyes. I don't think I have a choice anymore. He exhaled slowly. Then God help you, he said. Because whatever they're summoning, it already knows your name. Offerings. The word hit me like a punch to the chest. Offerings to what? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Father Anthony turned toward me, his face pale but resolute. To the same thing every ritual serves, he said. An ancient entity, a demon tied to idolatry. Every culture has a different name for it, but its purpose is always the same. To feed on worship and devotion. I ran my hands through my hair, the weight of his words sinking in. What about the stories? I asked. The rumors. Are they true? He nodded slowly, as if reluctant to confirm it. You've heard about the deaths, haven't you? He said. People tied to the industry who died mysteriously or tragically. Aaliyah. Whitney Houston. Prince. Do you really think they were all coincidences? My stomach tightened. Sacrifices don't always happen in dark rooms with candles, he continued. Sometimes they're public. Sometimes the death itself is the ritual, a way to appease the entity and keep the cycle going. And Jay-Z and Beyoncé? I pressed. What about them? Father Anthony sighed, leaning heavily against the pulpit. Beyoncé's Super Bowl halftime show, he said. The one where people claimed to see demonic faces in the flames. That wasn't an accident. It was intentional. Fire is a cleansing force in rituals, a way to show devotion. He looked at me carefully. And her alter ego, Sasha Fierce. You think that's just a marketing gimmick? No, it's a manifestation. A way to channel something else during her performances. He gestured toward the file in my hands. And Jay-Z? His music is littered with references if you know where to look. Lucifer isn't just a clever title. It's a nod. To the entity they serve. To the power they draw from. My throat felt dry. And the Rock Nation logo, the diamond, it's a veiled reference. A sigil. Used in summoning rituals. I was about to ask another question when a low groan filled the room. Like wood creaking under immense pressure. My eyes shot to the crucifix hanging above the altar. It was moving. Slowly, impossibly. Turning upside down. The air grew thick, heavy, as if the church itself was holding its breath. Father Anthony crossed himself, backing away. You need to leave, now. What's happening? I asked, my voice barely steady. It knows you're here, he said, his voice trembling. You've brought its name too close to sacred ground. Leave. And whatever you do, don't say its name. Not out loud. Not ever. I didn't argue. I grabbed the file and bolted for the door, the sound of the creaking crucifix following me into the night. As I drove away, my mind raced. Every word Father Anthony had said replaying over and over. The pieces were starting to fit together. But the picture they formed was something I wished I could unsee. Rituals disguised as performances. Deaths and tragedies masking sacrifices. Worship turned into a weapon. Father Anthony's warning echoed in my ears. It doesn't just take power. It takes lives. But it wasn't his words that shook me the most. It was the image burned into my mind, the crucifix twisting upside down like something out of a nightmare. Whatever this thing was, it knew I was coming. And it wasn't afraid. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as I glanced into the rearview mirror. Half expecting to see, I glanced at the file sitting on the passenger seat. Diddy's party was only days away. The date circled in red felt like it was burning through the page, searing itself into my memory. I'd read enough about these parties to know they weren't what they seemed. M.I.A. had described them as ceremonies, ways to seal deals with blood and devotion. Father Anthony had confirmed it. These weren't just networking events for the elite. They were rituals, contracts. And Diddy's mansion wasn't just a venue. It was a temple. The urgency pounding in my chest wouldn't let up. This was my chance, maybe my only chance to see it for myself, to understand what I was really up against. But the closer I got, the more I realized something else. I wasn't just walking into a party. I was walking into a war. The mansion would be the battleground, and the idols of the music industry were already preparing for their performance. I could feel it in my bones. Whatever they were summoning, whatever they were serving, it was already waiting, and I was heading straight into its lair. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. I didn't have much time. If I was going to do this, I had to prepare. The file was my map, my guide through the shadows, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. I needed more. More understanding, more evidence, more courage, and I needed it fast, because once I walked through those gates, there would be no turning back. I took a deep breath and turned onto the highway, the road stretching out before me like an invitation to hell. The mansion party was coming, and every instinct I had told me to run, but I didn't. I couldn't. The truth was waiting, and I was going to face it no matter what it cost me. The mansion loomed in the distance like a dark monolith, its towering gates bathed in golden floodlights. The sprawling estate exuded an air of exclusivity and menace, the kind of place you wouldn't dare enter unless invited. But I was here anyway, invitation or not. As I pulled up to the gates, my heart pounded. 2 guards stood watch, stone-faced and dressed in tailored black suits. I handed over the forged invitation I'd managed to get my hands on, half expecting them to call me out. They didn't. They barely glanced at it before waving me through. Their indifference was somehow more unnerving than suspicion. It was as if they already knew I was supposed to be here. The driveway curved through meticulously, landscaped gardens that felt too perfect, too sterile. The mansion itself was massive, its sleek modern lines clashing with the ornate, Gothic statues scattered across the property. The air buzzed with an unnatural energy, a low hum. I couldn't explain but felt deep in my chest. When I stepped inside, I was struck by the intimacy of the gathering. This wasn't the wild, hedonistic party you'd expect. The guests moved like shadows, dressed in black, whispering in hushed tones. No one greeted me, but no one questioned me either. It was as if they all knew something I didn't. The decor was subtle but deliberate. Black candles flickered on every surface, their flames dancing just enough to cast distorted shapes along the walls. Their flames danced as if alive. Strange symbols were etched into the marble floors, so faint they were almost invisible, but I recognized them. They matched the symbols from Vargas's files, the same ones Father Anthony had called invocations. I moved through the rooms, trying to blend in. Though my heart raced with every step, the conversations around me were fragmented, cryptic. I caught snippets of words: the offering, the vessel, the idol. No one spoke in full sentences, as if even their whispers were part of the ritual. Then I saw them. Jay-Z and Beyoncé entered the room like royalty, the crowd parting silently for them. They were dressed in flowing black, their movements deliberate, almost too perfect. Beyoncé's face was calm, serene, but her eyes looked through people, not at them. Jay-Z carried himself with the same quiet authority, his presence commanding the room without a single word. The air shifted as they walked past me. It wasn't just the weight of their celebrity. It was something more, something oppressive. They radiated power, but it wasn't theirs. It was borrowed, channeled. I could feel it. The whispers grew louder as they passed. "It's almost time," someone murmured. Time for what? I didn't know, but I wasn't leaving until I found out. I followed the crowd as they moved toward a set of double doors at the end of the hallway. Two guards stood in front, their expressions blank, eyes unblinking. One of them nodded and the doors opened. What lay beyond wasn't just a room. It was a chamber. The air inside was colder, heavier. Black drapes lined the walls, and at the center of the room stood an altar made of obsidian, its surface etched with the same glowing symbols I'd seen throughout the house. Candles formed a perfect circle around it, their flames flickering in unison. The air smelled of incense and something metallic. Blood, maybe. Guests filed in silently, taking their places along the walls. I stayed near the back, trying to remain invisible. At the center of the room stood Jay-Z, Beyoncé, and Diddy. Their black robes had been replaced with shimmering gold and crimson, the colors of blood and power. The ritual began without announcement. Jay-Z stepped forward, his voice low and rhythmic, chanting in a language I didn't recognize. The words didn't just fill the room. They vibrated through it, resonating in my chest like a second heartbeat. Beyoncé stood at the altar, head bowed, her hands resting on a black dagger encrusted with gemstones. Diddy circled them, pouring a thick, dark liquid into a brazier that erupted in green-blue flames. The energy in the room was suffocating, palpable. Guests stood motionless, their faces blank, eyes fixed on the altar, as if they weren't even present, just vessels for whatever was about to happen. As the chanting grew louder, Beyoncé raised the dagger. She sliced her palm, letting the blood drip onto the altar. The flames roared higher, and the symbols etched into the obsidian seemed to pulse, alive with the dark energy they had summoned. The symbols began to glow. The room vibrated with unholy energy, and I realized I wasn't just watching a ritual. I was watching a summoning. The air above the altar shimmered, bending like heat over asphalt. A figure began to materialize, massive, barely human. Its molten skin glowed like embers, cracking and oozing black tar. Its eyes burned with an unnatural fire, and its horns spiraled upward, disappearing into the darkness above. This wasn't just a demon. This was something more. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. This was what Father Anthony had warned me about. The thing they served. The thing they worshipped. I didn't need to hear its name to know what it was. The room fell silent, save for the crackling flames. The guests stood motionless, heads bowed as if in prayer. Jay-Z turned to Beyoncé, his voice carrying through the chamber. "The offering is ready." Beyoncé didn't respond. She didn't need to. She lifted her head. Her eyes glowed with the same unholy light as the entity hovering above her. Then she smiled. Something inside me snapped. Fear gave way to desperation. If I didn't act now, I'd never have another chance. My legs shook as I stepped forward, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. "Stop!" I shouted, my voice breaking through the ritual like a stone through glass. "What are you? What are you doing to the industry? What happened to Ellen Vargas?" The demon's head turned sharply. Its burning eyes locked onto mine. The weight of its gaze nearly dropped me to my knees, but I held my ground. Then it spoke. The voice was low and guttural, vibrating with an unnatural depth, as if it came from within the earth itself. "I am the fire that consumes," it growled, the words reverberating through the chamber. "I am the Lord of Idols, the Prince of Worship. I have ruled over kings and nations, their devotion feeding my strength. I am older than your gods, your books, your meaningless prayers." Its molten skin shifted and cracked as it spoke, its horns curling like living serpents. "This industry, your music, is my temple. The voices of millions rise to me like incense. Their worship is mine, their souls my feast." My chest tightened. "Ellen Vargas was a fool," it continued. "She sought to tear down what cannot be undone." My hands shook as I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my ears. I had one last card to play. "Tell me your name," I demanded, my voice cracking. "What are you called?" The creature tilted its head, the fire in its eyes blazing brighter. "You know my name, mortal. To speak it is to give it power. To hear it is to know fear." "Say it!" I shouted, the words tearing from my throat. "Tell me your name." The flames surged. The symbols on the altar burned brighter. The guests let out a low, collective moan as the demon's body writhed, its form twisting into something even more grotesque. It leaned forward, its voice erupting into a roar that shook the walls. "I am Baal." The name stretched into a guttural, otherworldly growl. The room shuddered as it reverberated through the air, so ancient, so primal, it felt like it was tearing through my very soul. My knees buckled and I collapsed to the floor, clutching my chest as the fire roared higher, casting the demon's massive shadow across the chamber. The guests began to chant again, their voices rising in unison with the flames. The demon stepped forward, its burning eyes fixed on me. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, paralyzed by its presence. It drew closer, its molten form radiating a suffocating heat that pressed the air from my lungs. Somehow, I managed to stumble backward. My legs finally obeyed. I turned and ran. I bolted for the door, breath ragged, heart pounding. The sound of its roar chasing me down the hallway. It echoed in my ears even as I burst into the night. The mansion's lights burned behind me like a beacon in the darkness, the demon's shadow seeming to stretch across the sky itself. I reached my car, hands trembling as I started the engine. The name still rang in my mind, my breath coming in shallow, broken gasps. I was alive, but I didn't feel safe. Not here, not anywhere. The winding road out of the gated community felt endless. Shadows from towering trees on either side stretched and twisted unnaturally in the dim glow of my headlights. I could still feel it. Those burning eyes, that suffocating presence, watching me. I glanced at the file on the passenger seat. The only thing I had left to make sense of what I'd seen. Then I saw it. A figure illuminated by my headlights, hanging from the branch of an enormous tree at the side of the road. My stomach dropped. I slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt just feet from the shadowy form. The body swayed gently, almost mockingly, its head hanging at an impossible angle. I didn't want to get out. Every instinct screamed at me to keep driving, but something pulled me forward. I stepped out of the car, my legs weak, and walked closer. The body came into focus, and my blood turned to ice. It was me. Same clothes, same face, the same look of terror frozen in my eyes, only twisted by something worse. A smile, wide and grotesque, etched across my dead lips. The sight nearly dropped me to my knees. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat, my breath catching in my chest. The message was clear. I was marked. This wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. Baal's reach wasn't confined to the mansion or the industry. It was everywhere. They want you to believe it's just music, just entertainment, just harmless fun. But it isn't. Every cheer, every download, every idol you worship, it feeds something bigger, darker, ancient. I've seen it with my own eyes. I faced it and I barely escaped with my life. Ellen Vargas tried to expose this. She paid the price. Others have too. M.I.A spoke out. No one believed her. They called her crazy, blacklisted her, destroyed her life. But now you know the truth. This isn't just my fight. It's hers. It's for all the voices that were silenced so the machine could keep turning. This fight isn't over. It's just beginning.